But tonight's topic, very serious. It's about depression, suicide, and self-harm. A couple of caveats. First off, I am not Dr. Carter, okay? So here's what that means. Yet. I'm just kidding. I do not want to become a doctor. But what that means is that if you are seeing a doctor or a friend is seeing a doctor, they should first obey and comply with what the doctor is saying, okay? If there's medicine involved and prescriptions and things, obey and be obedient to those prescriptions, okay? If you're seeing a counselor, listen to the counselor. I will say this. I would recommend that you see a Christian counselor, okay? A faith-based Christian counselor, if that's an option for you guys. And I would probably push for you to like, hey, let me try that if you are seeing a counselor or know someone who is, okay? And we can help you with that if needed. Are we good? Yeah. All right. So we're going to kind of jump right in. First off, we need to go over some definitions because it's very easy for us to misapply some definitions, okay? So first off, when we say depression, Josh, what do you mean? So when I say depression, and when counselors and stuff say depression, here's what they're referring to. It's long seasons of extreme sadness, hopelessness, and despair, okay? That does not mean you had a bad day yesterday. That doesn't mean that your dog used the bathroom inside the house on your new shoes and you're upset about it. That's not what that means. If you're like another one, anxiety, we're going to talk about anxiety and worry next week. Come back and see us. But anxiety, if you say, oh, I have anxiety, and a medical doctor has not told you that, but you're like, you have a test tomorrow, and I'm anxious about it, I've got anxiety. You need to understand that is not anxiety, that is you needing to study, okay? Those are different things, and we'll talk more about anxiety next week. But depression is a long season, like weeks, months, years of this extreme sadness, this feeling of hopelessness and despair. And very briefly, let me kind of explain what that despair is happening and that feeling of hopelessness. It's like your brain, the left side and the right side of your brain are despairing. They're separating. It's like you're shutting off the Bluetooth connection. And the logical side and the creative and emotional side aren't really meeting together. And that's why whenever you've had a friend confide emotionally some information to you, and you, fellas, responded with something like, well, just don't do that. All right, let's go eat something, right? That's what we do, right? Because we're trying to give like this logical thing. But you've been given logical advice before, and you've sat there and listened to your parents and said, they just don't get it. Because you're on the emotional train, and they're trying to make a logic drop-off, right? So that's kind of what's happening. There's a separation there. And I'm not even going to pretend to try to like, give a story from my past and say, I know what you're going through. I am wholeheartedly saying, I want to listen to your story. So after tonight, if you have a conversation you want to have and explain and talk about what's going on in your life or what you're going through, we are here for that. You have a room full of people to help you. You have a squad. That's why we call it squad, not just me, right? It's called squad. We show up and we show out. So all that being said, now, are you ready to get into this? Yeah. All right, here we go. Since I'm not going to just open and share my story, because I haven't had this kind of feeling and it was hard for me to associate with it, I thought it'd be best to go to the Bible, all right? Bring it to G.O.D. and see what he has to say. And I want to debunk a common myth that seems to take place about mental health, especially with seasons of suicide and depression. It seems to be that people say if you were more spiritual, you wouldn't go through that, right? And I want to tell you flat out right now, that is a myth. That is not true. And if anyone ever tells you that and tries to say that they're a Christian, then you should say, oh, thank you for that. You should read 1 Kings 18 and 19. It did great for me, right? Because when you read those two chapters that we're going to kind of look at and we did during worship, we see Elijah going from the pinnacle, one of the highest moments of his Christian, like God-loving career into a depression, all right? So with that, if you're taking notes, write this down, your title. It's not what you think. That seems kind of weird to name something. We're talking about mental health, Josh. Yep. It's not what you think. So let's go back into Elijah's story real quick, and I'm going to summarize it for you. Don't worry. So here's the summary real quick. Elijah got tired of this country, the Israelites, turning away from the God, Yahweh, and going to this other God. And he said, I'm so tired of that. guys, he called them together. He got all the prophets. There's like hundreds of prophets. There's like 450 prophets for this one God, and then 400 other prophets for this other God. And he got them all together and said, hey, let's stop arguing. How about we just do like a little battle, okay? Not a rap battle. All right, we don't need Porky Pig. We don't need to do a little rap battle. How about we just do like a Fortnite battle? You bring Bell into the ring, and you log on at the same time I'm logging on, and I'm going to bring God into the ring, and we're just going to have us a little battle. And he said, he was so confident. I love this man's swag. He said, I'm going to let you go first. And all you have to do is pray to your God and sacrifice this bull and have fire come down from heaven. And he let them go first. And my boy Elijah, I love this. This is one of my favorite parts of the Bible. Elijah in verse 27 starts talking trash. Yep, that's right. This is like one of the first recordings of trash talking in history, and we have it for you tonight. Here it goes. At noon, Elijah began to taunt, which lets me know he was doing a lot of it. He said he began at noon. He ended at evenish, right? Like the sun's going down, he's just over there like, moonwalking and everything. But he said, shout louder to them. He's like, maybe you're God, like you got to be loud for him. You're trying to get him to bring fire. You can't be quiet about it. You got to be loud for him. Surely he is a God. It's like he's jumping on their side trying to egg him on. It's like, surely he wants to do, he's got to be a God. I mean, you're worshiping him. You're doing all this stuff for him. He's got to be a God, right? I mean, come on. Maybe some guys ain't seeing it. And he starts talking trash. He goes on, he says, perhaps he's in a deep thought. But maybe he's thinking about it. Maybe he's preoccupied. He's thinking about some stuff. He's got a lot on his mind. Or he's busy, okay? He's too busy to bring fire down. He's doing something else somewhere. Maybe he's busy, so we'll just keep waiting, right? It's noon now. I'm going to wait to eat. I'm going to fast, right? I'm good with it. I'm going to just wait. But y'all keep going. And he said, or maybe he's traveling. And then my favorite, maybe your boy is sleeping and must be awakened. He was sleeping on y'all, right? And it's funny for us to laugh at this, but the truth of the matter is you've prayed some prayers and you've asked God for some things, and it sounded a lot like he was thinking about someone else and too busy for you and your request. I do want to paint one brief question or like idea in your minds, and we'll get on to this topic and we can talk more about it later if you come up and ask me. But be careful about treating your Bible like a spell book. Don't get in here and say, oh, okay, he did that, and then he got what he wanted. Okay. Jesus, I want her to come to prom with me. So I am not going to eat I'm a fast, right? I'm going to not eat my lunch. I'm going to do all these things that I saw in Scripture, right? Don't go walking up to Jack Britt with a cross saying promposal. That is not what Jesus meant when he said every day, carry your cross. That is not what he was saying. So be careful about trying to use this like it's a spell book to get what you want. And we'll kind of end with why that is, but just a little thought for you. But let's be real. You've prayed some things, and you've asked for some things that maybe God didn't do for you. And they were good things. They were things where family members are in the hospital, you prayed. There were some tough things like, God, where are you at? Don't you want this for me? Now, on that, I will also add this, that when it comes to death, you should know that God does not view death the same way we view death. Imagine that your parent or loved one or friend has been gone for a very long time, and they come back, and you got the banner out, and you're like, oh, girl, go what this say? And you like tackle them, right? Right. That's what it's like in heaven. So you're missing them. I'm not going to say they've forgotten. They haven't forgotten about you. They're missing you. Like they get to look, oh, you go do that. You go, all right, yeah, right. But they're having a really good time. When they had a relationship with God and they got to walk into the kingdom, God was excited, okay? So that's what we'll say about that part. But let's keep moving on. Verse 28, he says, so shout louder. And then this caught my attention. They slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until blood flowed. You see, I thought that cutting ourselves was something that was just like a teenage thing that was happening like since, the 2000s. I thought it was like a Gen Z kind of thing, a millennial maybe kind of thing, but nothing past that. But we have trash talking recorded in history and then self-harm recorded in history. And then even in the New Testament, you have a guy that was cutting himself as well. So it's always been happening. In this case, it was to worship and show worship to this God and trying to get him to do their will. But it's so true that we find ourselves like we harm ourselves, not to worship someone, but we do want to control a part of our life, right? So whenever our emotions overcome us, we want to do anything we can to remove ourselves from it. So this assignment is just for you to empathize with some people who are going through this so you know what they're going through. These emotions are so overwhelming that they would do anything to remove themselves from that emotion. And so if I can cut or burn or bite or harm myself in a way, now my attention turns to this and I can escape for a little bit from that season. But here's what I want to tell you tonight, if that's you, that when the blood flows and the wound heals, you're in the same situation. Nothing's changed. And that's not good news. It's not meant to be good news. I'm just letting you know. And this is logic, right? But so it's not going to add, but nothing has changed. But it can. And we're going to get to it. All right, so one more time, let's give our title. It's not what you think. All right, so here we go. So he's got these guys, and he's saying, hey, you do this, and whoever brings fire from heaven, that's the God we're going to worship. And then finally he gets tired of it. Okay, you can only talk trash for so long. You run out of punchlines after a while. And all of a sudden he says, okay, it's my turn. Get off the stage, right, back up, watch me work, right? And he prays to the God. And fire comes from heaven and strikes the altar. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Now, a quick other side note, if you're here because you got invited or like she was cute and asked you to come, and you're like, anything for you, babe, right? And you're here and you don't really believe in the God thing, and you don't believe in the Bible thing, it's probably because of stories like this. Can we be honest? When is the last time you prayed for something like that? Lord, if you could just give me a parking spot, and it didn't happen. Now you're praying for fire to come from heaven? How is that going to possibly take place? So it's just like that. Why people think us Christians are crazy. So real quick, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in the Bible, and this story like fire could never come from heaven, if that's you, I just need you to get your phone out real quick, and for the rest of the time you can search this. I just need you to search wildfires. You be on that homework assignment. Now we're going to go back to the story, which lets me know that it is possible, and it has happened, and it happens all the time, for fire to just get started. Smokey said only you can prevent forest fires. You lied, Smokey. You better point up like only God can prevent forest fires, because they happen an awful bunch, right? So there's a little homework assignment for you if you're having a struggle with the whole fire from heaven thing. But now it gets in depth, okay? So if I'm Elijah and I just prayed for fire to hit this altar, you know what's about to happen to me? I'm going to stand up before all y'all and say, I would like my gold medal and my Nobel Peace Prize. As I approach the podium and say, first off, I would like to thank my Heavenly Father and my parents, Mom, Dad, thank you. And I'm accepting this fire from heaven on their behalf. And I want to thank everyone that made this possible, right? I would be giving my acceptance speech and celebrating that. You would not be able to do anything to shut me up. I just prayed fire from heaven. But Elijah then turns all the way up and kills every single one of the prophets who was against God, so they could stop trying to profess this false God. Yeah, your boy went off. He tore the whole thing up, killed all the prophets, and it was one versus like 850, almost 1,000 people. The odds were not forever in his favor, and he still was able to do that. What in the world is happening? But when you pray fire down from heaven, don't you know that you must have a new kind of swag, okay? So how did we get from that moment to, as soon as the queen found out and threatened Elijah, now he's praying, God, take my life. because he just had what you could possibly call one of the most spiritual moments of his life. And Elijah was a saint. Like, he was a guy. He was so holy that he could pray fire from heaven. But he was also so holy he could bring people to life. And he was also so holy and an MVP that when Jesus was walking around and Jesus asked a group of people, hey, who do people say that I am? He responded, or they responded with, well, some people think you're Elijah. This is that guy, and now he is before God saying, will you take my life? So it's not that you need to be more spiritual. Well, then, Josh, what are some of the things that tend to lead us to depression and these dark seasons? Well, I'm glad you asked in your mind. Here's one of them. We tend, again, it's not what you think, but we tend to have a certain perception. We have a certain perception of the events going on in our lives. So if you're taking notes, the first word to write down is perception, and right beside it, or you could do a slash or two slashes because that's the way we roll, is comparison. Comparison. I didn't know that I didn't have something until I saw that you had it. I didn't know. And now all of a sudden that I see that you have that thing that I don't have, I wish I had it. And now I can see that there's a gap between me and between you. And then whenever I see you approach me and trying to make me feel good about myself because you're trying to be a good friend or a good person at school, all I can hear when you're talking the logic to me or you're trying to give me some emotion is I'm saying that you will never understand what I'm going through. Because it's obviously that your parents got you that for Christmas, my parents can't do that. It's obvious that there's a difference between us. So point number one is we have a certain perception, which is what we think. Point number two is this: we internalize and victimize. Because now I'm seeing what's going on around me. I internalize that and say, well, what does that mean for me? And then I victimize and say, well, it wouldn't be that way. It's my fault. And they don't understand, they don't understand what they're doing to me. And so I'm internalizing all these things and focusing it back on me, and the weight of that gets heavy to carry. And it can lead to a dark season. So I want to remind you, squad, it's not about what you think. It's about what you believe about what you think. Thinking just implies logic. Thinking is gathering information. We can all gather information and come to different conclusions. For example, not to get controversial, but this is a topic that I've seen people bring up before, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but imagine if I did. How many of you, based off of the evidence from the O.J. Simpson trial, do y'all remember that? Or you don't remember, but you know it, would think that he was guilty or innocent? What does the evidence say? What does the logic say? It says nothing. It's all about what you believe about the evidence. You can collect the information. You can collect the comments from your friends. You can collect the comments on social media. You can collect all this information. Let's get serious, right? You can collect the information that your parents are going through a separation right now. You can collect all that. But what you believe about what you think, that's where there's tension. Because you might believe that they were happy when they got married, but now that you came along, it's your fault. And now I'm the reason. And now it's because of me. And Lord, I've had enough. Take my life. It's about what you believe about what you think. But don't take my word for it. Let's look back at what happened with Elijah right here. So we're going to fast forward real quick and a little pickup from next week. So here's some free information for you. I do want to give some practical stuff. I was going to save this for next week. But Elijah prayed this prayer, take my life, and then he falls asleep. Practical step number one. If you're going through some anxiety right now, some stress, some worry, you might need to take a nap. You might need some sleep, okay? But let's be honest, if you're going through some stress, sometimes you're too stressed to sleep because you're worried about the stress and it's keeping you up, right? So what you might need to do, and I'm taking notes from next week, is you might need to exercise and get your body physically tired. If mentally, I'm woke, right? Physically, let me get tired enough. And you also need to eat. And that's what Elijah did. He slept and ate. Right there you go. Boom. College years right there for you. It's like he was having summer out in the wilderness. But Elijah is alone. He's afraid. And he's having suicidal thoughts. So this sounds like a depression. So he falls asleep. And when he wakes up, an angel says, hey, you need to eat. Here's some food. Wait, what? I want that angel. God, I want that angel, right? And he eats. And then he falls back asleep. And then he gets up and the angel again, hey, eat. You're going to need this. And he then goes on a 40-day journey in the wilderness, isolated from other people. And he ends up at this very mountain where Moses got the 10 Commandments. That's pretty cool. So he did all this stuff and got in the presence of God. And when he gets to this cave, here's what happens in verse 9. There he went into a cave and spent the night. I'm out, right? I'm not going to spend the night. I work too hard to pretend to be poor outside in a cave, right? But here he is at a cave, and the word of the Lord came to him. And here's the question that he asked. He said, what are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here at this moment in this place? Having these kind of thoughts. What are you doing here? And here's Elijah's response. I just want to break it down real quick and see what we can find from what we just talked about. He says in the very next verse, verse 10, I have been very zealous for you, Lord God Almighty. I've been zealous. I've been excited about you. I've been doing all the things for you. Right? I'm at every time the church doors are open, I'm there for you. Like I'm talking to everybody about you. It's always been you. The Israelites, however, they have rejected your covenant. Turned down for what? Oh, they turned down for your altars. That's what they turned down for. They turned down your altars. They have put your prophets to death with the sword. So here's what we have in his initial response. He first begins with comparison. I have been doing all this for you. The Israelites, they haven't. They've been doing all these other things. He's already comparing. But let's go on and see what else he says. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. That's actually a lie. Elijah was not the only prophet left. The king's assistant had actually hidden 100 prophets in caves, similar to the one that Elijah is currently in. So he was not the only one left. You are not the only one going through what you are going through. But we tend to internalize and victimize and assume no one else will understand. But he brought it to God. And this is weird to me because I've prayed before and I've wanted some things and I had an image like, hey, God, here's what I want. You know, if you could just deliver for me Amazon style within 2 days or less, right? That's what I want, God. That's what I'm going to pray for. But Elijah is having this depressing season and prays for his life to end and said all this to God. And here's what God says. He says, hey, get up, go outside the cave. I'm going to come by. I'm going to come see you. Ladies, if you ever get a text from a guy that says, hey, I'm about to swing by, all you have to respond is like ... with like the smoke emoji. And then in parentheses, keep going, right? Don't stop. Just keep on going. But here's what happened. He said, I'm going to pass by, and here's what took place next. Next verse for you on the screen. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. A tornado essentially touched down and tore everything up. But the Lord was not in the wind. That's strange. Let's keep reading. After the wind, there was an earthquake. Everything began to shake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire. Oh, not another fire, but yep, another fire. And verse 12, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. And that's where God was. Here's my confusion. Why is it that this hero of God didn't get the response where God said, she said what to you? Elijah, boy, get behind me. You better watch Daddy go to work. I'm about to put her in her place. She's the queen of who? I'm going to get her unelected. I'm going to make sure that something happens to her. Don't even worry about it, Elijah. I'm going to make you feel better. God didn't say that. God didn't change Elijah's situation. God did not say, hey, here's what's going to happen. Don't worry about it. God let an earthquake, a fire, and a tornado take place real quick. If you're going through a depression and you're at home and all of a sudden the whole house begins to shake, a fire bursts in the front yard, and a tornado and sirens are going off, are you thinking, God is in this place? I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, this is it. I've had enough. Lord, take my life. I'm back where Elijah was when I think that way. But it's not what I think. It's about what I believe, about what I think. Which tells me that this destruction and this chaos had to have a source. That's it. Lily, that's it. That's it. God put on display what only God could do. He didn't say anything about who was coming against Elijah. He didn't say, Elijah, here's what I'm going to do for you. None of that. He just put on display what only God could do. Which brings to mind that Elijah had the audacity to say, I'm going to Lord, take my life. When Jesus, the Son of God, even said himself, they do not take my life. I'm going to give my life. But I'm going to give it as a ransom so that you and everyone in this room could have life. The storm, the wind, the fire, the earthquake, it shows me God's power, and it reminds me of the source, in many cases, of my depression and my anxiety. I'm trying to be in control. I'm trying to be in control of my life. I'm trying to control the outcome of everything in my life. Let me give you some bad but good news. You cannot control the outcome of your life. Life is 90% of what you do with the 10% that happens to you. So it's not even all up to me. Real quick, raise your hand if you called yourself into existence. Okay, yep. So no one, right? But you were called into existence. It wasn't your parents, shocker there, right? It wasn't your parents. I know it wasn't, because my parents would have asked for someone that was taller, thicker, and had their retirement plan hooked up with some sort of MLB contract, okay? I am not that guy. So I know it couldn't have been that. I also did not say, hey, Mom, Dad, here I come. Right? I didn't do that. But I was called out. Your life is valuable. Every life is valuable. That's why we say, don't take a life. Your life is so important. If you don't know the value of your life, all you have to do is read one verse, John 3:16. You are so valuable that the Son of God gave his life so that you could have life. And it's not to change the circumstances of everything around you, but it's to change the circumstances of everything in you. When I realize that God is in control, I realize I don't have to be. And I trust his outcome. And I can do what I need to do. I don't have to be in control. Here, let's make it very practical, and I know we're running out of time, and we're going to do some stuff here in a second, but check this out. You don't even have the title to the car you drove to get here, which means you don't have control. The phone in your pocket, many of you, not all of, many of you didn't even pay all the money to get the phone that's in your pocket. But here's the thing. You can control the car on the way here. You can control the phone and the apps. But the moment that the holder of the title and the phone bill decides something, you have no control. So what if your life is the same way, where I can control the baby steps in my life, but I need to understand that it's all in alignment with his will for my life. and now I can have the purpose I've been looking for. You just have to realize that you're not in control. You weren't designed to be in control. So what if you stop trying to control the outcome? It's not what you think. It's what you believe about what you think. And it's about what you are trying to control in your life. So you may have some questions. I certainly would if I were you. Like, Josh, I don't know what the practical step would be. Like, how do I combat these things and these feelings and these emotions? And those are great questions that we're going to get to next week. But it starts with you realizing you're not intended to have control of your life. So what if you gave control of your life to the provider of life? What if tonight you decided, I'm not going to have on the option table to harm myself or to take my life? I'm taking it off the table, and I'm going to give control of my life to God. You can do that tonight. And all I can do is present the gospel to you. So what we're going to do is have you pray for that. Text your parents real quick and say, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes late if they're outside in the parking lot waiting. But we're going to have our volunteers in the back of the room. We're going to play a song. Not all of it, just a little bit of it. Not the band, sorry. We're going to play a song, and we just want to pray. Because I can't control anything. I don't have control, and you don't have control. So I probably should talk to the one who's in control. And what if you let him into your life? So we're going to, if you need prayer, our volunteers are going to be on the back wall. Just run to them and say, hey, I want you to pray for me. I'll be up here. You can come up here and say, I want you to pray for me. And if you want to just pray by yourself, that's awesome. You can kneel down at your seat and pray right there. You can pray for yourself. You can pray for a family member. You can pray for a friend. You can pray for someone who's going through a deep, dark battle right now. And ask for God to show himself and let them know he is in control. And just surrender to him. So with that being said, squad, would you bow your head? Or if you want to, you can go ahead and get up and go pray in the back of the room. But we're going to play the song and let you pray. Hey, thank you so much for watching this message at CrossPointe Church and our youth group. If you want to receive Christ as your personal Savior, we're so excited for you making that decision, but perhaps you want to know more about what that means and, of course, what's next. So please go to the description, check out those links to find out more information, and, of course, reach out and we can schedule your baptism whenever you're ready. But thank you again for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and we love you guys.